Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's featured Reddit stories are from Entitled People. Story 1 today is by Happy Llama 78625. Entitled Kid tried to force me into his car. So earlier today, I, an 18 female, was invited to go to a party at a friend of a friend's house, and even though I knew I wouldn't know too many people there, I still decided to go. And so I go with 2 of my friends, and we get there, and it's less of a party and more like a hangout of just like 15 or so people, just hanging out, and I don't really know most of them, but at one point I start talking to this guy I kind of knew from a few classes named Tom, and he's like this total dude bro, but he's pretty funny and holds a conversation well. I noticed he was eyeing me up and down my body while we talked, but I didn't really mind it as we were talking, and he says that he's really good friends with the host. And after about 30 minutes, the host goes up and asks Tom, "Yo bro, can you go get us some more snacks and drinks?" And Tom sighs a bit and says, "Yeah, I got you, no worries." And Tom gets up and he turns to me and says, "Hey, do you want to come with?" At this point, I'm kind of getting a crush on this guy. It goes away quickly. And so I say, "Yeah, sure." And we go get in his car. And I've seen some bad drivers, but this guy was on another level. He's going like 25 over, blowing through stop signs and just being reckless, all without a seatbelt. And I tell him, "Can you slow down, please?" And he says, "What, you don't think this is fun?" And he presses the accelerator, and I say a bit less calmly, "Dude, slow down." And he says, "Fine, whatever," and he slows down a bit, but at this point my crush on him is gone and I'm annoyed. But I put it past me, so we get to the store and we pick up some snacks and drinks and we go to the register, and self-checkouts are closed, so we go to the cashier, and when we walk up, he says, "Hi, how are you guys doing?" And before I can respond, Tom says, "If I wanted to talk to you, I would have asked." And both me and the cashier are kind of speechless, and I say, "Relax, he's just doing his job." And Tom snaps back, "No, his job is to check us out, not making small talk." I say, "Dude, there's no need to be so rude." Tom then says, "You know, I thought you were pretty cool back at the party, but ever since we left, you've just been a B-word, so now I'm genuinely mad." I say, "Who do you think you are? Don't talk to me like that." And Tom replies, "Just shut up, I'm not giving you a ride back." "Fine by me," I say, and turn to the cashier and apologize for Tom and leave the store. So I order an Uber on my phone, and I'm waiting for it to come, and I see Tom walk out of the store with bags of food, and he puts them in his car, and he gets in, but then he loops around the parking lot and drives up to the sidewalk where I'm standing. He steps out, walks up to me, says, like all cool, nothing happened, "Come on, get in, I'll drive you back." And I say, "No, I'm good, I ordered an Uber." Tom says, a bit annoyed, "Just get in, I'm not leaving you out in the cold." I then tell him, "No, I don't want to get in your car, you can leave." Tom then comes up, reaches out, and grabs my right arm with his right hand and pulls me and wraps his left arm behind my waist, a bit too low for my comfort too, and positions me so he's like hugging me against his chest, and he wrapped his right arm around my chest to hold my arms in place. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared. I'm 5'2" and like 100 pounds, and this guy has a good foot over me, but he starts pulling me towards his car, saying, "Just get in." And I start yelling, "Let go of me," like anyone would, and this group of guys sees us and runs over, and they start yelling at him to let me go, and Tom lets me go. He puts his hands up saying, chill, we're just messing around, we're friends." And I say, "The heck we are, get away," and the guys start pressuring him. And so Tom drove off. This is just a tiny side note. Anybody who happens to be reading this story at the same time that they're listening to it, because that's generally how I do it, did anybody else notice that the OP went from using Tom through 90% of this and suddenly it's Todd multiple times here at the end? It's things like that that make me question the legitimacy of stories like this. I can't be the only one that noticed. It's been going between Tom and Todd for the last 3 mentions of his name. The guys then made sure I was okay, and I said yes, that I had an Uber on the way, and they stayed with me until the Uber arrived. At that point, I just went home and messaged my friends and told them I was going home. Honestly, I'm just surprised by the switch up from Tom, but whatever, as we all know, boys will be boys. But thanks for reading my post. Sorry if it was long and boring. This kid was not entitled. This kid sounds like a predator in the making. You need to make sure other people know about this, especially potentially adults. I know you're 18 and technically you're a young adult yourself, but you need to make sure people know about this. Maybe even his parents if he still lives with them. Make sure your parents know. Because he tried to force you to get into his car and you're much smaller than he is. And if those guys weren't there to help you at that moment, this could have ended very badly for you. This is not boys will be boys. This guy sounds like a predator in the making. You watch out. A phrase comes to mind when I think of guys like this. Bad news bears is the phrase. Our next story is by Aria AC. Our friend's entitled sister tried to force her way into our trip to Egypt. This story happened quite a few years ago with me and my friends, but after reading quite a few stories on this subreddit, I feel now is as good a time as any to share this post. On November 2019, me and a couple of my friends, who I will call Haley, Rose, and Rachel, were given an opportunity to travel to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Note that we are archeology graduates. While our family and friends were excited and proud of us being able to go on this trip, Rachel's family did not feel the same way. Rachel's younger sister, who we'll call Lisa, was the golden child of her family. Anything she wanted, her parents gave to her. While Rachel had to take out a student loan to pay for college, Lisa's parents paid for her tuition only for Lisa to drop out in 2 years. Instead, Lisa chose to try to build a career being a model and influencer on Instagram. When Rachel mentioned that she was going to Egypt with us, that our plane tickets and accommodation have been already taken care of for archaeological fieldwork, Lisa got jealous as she felt that a trip taking photos of herself in Egypt for Instagram would help launch her modeling career. That said, their parents demanded that Rachel give her tickets to Lisa, as they felt Lisa was more deserving of it, to which Rachel obviously said no. It was already paid for by the foundation specifically for her and our group who were trained to do this kind of work, etc. According to Rachel, she's had back and forth arguments with her family leading up to the trip, and she eventually just left home and moved in with her boyfriend's, now husband, apartment. I held on to our plane tickets as we were all to meet up at my dad's place in the morning before we head off to the airport. At the time, I still lived with my dad. That said, as me, Rachel, Haley, and Rose were at my place just hanging out and getting ready, the car of Lisa and their mom pulled up and they came knocking on my door. Apparently, they were demanding one more time that Rachel give her ticket to Lisa. Lisa even had a couple of bags with her as well. Before I continue, just to give you a better understanding of Lisa and Rachel's family and why they may behave or think this way. Rachel is the only one in her family who actually finished college. Rachel pretty much took care of herself for much of her childhood as her parents were too fixated on Lisa. Their parents moved to Los Angeles from Florida to try to become actors but failed, moved up here for some reason, and now their dad works as a truck driver and their mom, I think, works at a grocery store. Rachel's family treated formal education and academia in general as a joke and didn't really support the idea of anyone going to college until Lisa decided she was going to try college herself, as previously mentioned. Haley then interjected, interrupting them and pointing out again, this was not a vacation, this was an archaeological trip, and we were going there to do actual work. Haley went on to point out that it's Rachel's name on the plane ticket and our accommodation in Luxor. So she asked Lisa and her mom questions like, how do you think Lisa is going to get on the plane? Who will Lisa be traveling with in Egypt? And where will Lisa be staying there? Apparently, Lisa, despite not being friends with us at all, and her mom expected the rest of us, me, Haley, and Rose, to just somehow convince customs to let her through to get on the flight, as well as expecting us to look after and accompany Lisa. I should also note that apart from Rachel, nobody in her family ever traveled on a plane before. Lisa and their mom have never been overseas, and the only international traveling their dad ever did was driving trucks to and from Mexico. That said, I'm guessing this is why they don't seem to know how plane tickets or customs work, but that's just my assumption. I then pointed out to Lisa that if she really wants to go to Egypt, she could just buy her own tickets to Egypt and book her own accommodation. However, Lisa said she didn't want to do any of that and she wanted Rachel's place in our trip, as she wanted all the expenses to be paid for and for us to accompany her, as she didn't want to travel by herself. Lisa and her mom eventually left after seeing that trying to argue and force her way into our trip was not going to get them anywhere, with the four of us, me, Haley, Rachel, and Rose, flying off to Egypt. After the dig at the Valley of the Kings, we did get to go and do the touristy stuff, such as touring Cairo and seeing the pyramids of Giza. As for Lisa, while she still posts a lot on Instagram, she seems to have given up on a modeling and or influencer career, as she's now just working in a warehouse. After the pandemic, she did get to go on vacation to Cancun, but that's about it. Not gonna lie here, as interesting as it would be to see the pyramids of Giza, I think a trip to Cancun sounds like something more up my alley. I like beaches and warm weather, what can I say? And yes, I know that Egypt is in pretty warm weather as well, and it would be probably much more of a learning experience for me to go to Egypt if I were given the chance. But Cancun is beautiful! But Lisa and her mom are super duper entitled, and they have a very real lack of understanding as to how customs and reservations and plane tickets work. I wouldn't have even allowed them to have a conversation with me about it. I would have closed the door in their face, locked it, and said, "We're going, she's not, go away." It's super entitled to just show up when you know people are leaving to get on a plane with bags and to say, "Well, I need to go on that trip, not you guys." However, just the fact that she got a job is good. There's a lot of stories out there where people just don't get jobs at all. So props to her at least for getting one. But still, her behavior and her attitude in this was ridiculous. Our last story today is by Expensive Shake 2627. I pay my brother $100,000 a year, and this is what I get. I spent the last 7 years building my business to support myself initially and now my brother. He has had a lot of mental health struggles in his 20s, but pushed through. He left a stable white-collar job he hated and started a $12 an hour retail gig right before the pandemic. He got furloughed. I happened to get a call from a dream job I couldn't refuse and spent the next 3 months between training my brother and onboarding to this new company. 4 years later, I get RIFED, and we are working together again. You'd think he would be grateful. Or maybe you wouldn't, considering we are in the Entitled People subreddit. He makes $100,000 a year doing work that should take 6 hours a day max. I don't tell him when to work. I don't restrict his time off. He chooses what orders he wants to accept or reject. He has the ability to make $150,000 a year if he wanted to put in a full day's work. Sounds great, right? Wrong. He complains constantly. He has to respond to client inquiries from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but because he's so busy, he needs my help, despite the fact that I already answer all messages outside of business hours and on weekends. If he sees that a message hasn't been responded to in 1 hour and I said I was helping that day, he berates me for not communicating that I'm offline and accuses me of not doing my job. He constantly tells me that I don't care about the business, all the while I'm literally completing double his workload, covering 3 times more hours of client chats. He has told me I need to tell him if I'm not going to be available and when I'm going offline, even though my schedule has zero impact on his responsibilities or expectations as an employee. I'm frustrated. I'm feeling like the actual roles here are reversed, and in reality, he's just a super entitled brat. So you are the boss and you pay him $100,000 a year, but he is trying to act like he's your boss and he's your manager. This is prime entitled person content right here. The funny thing about this one is down in the comments afterwards, and I'm not actually going to show images of it. I'm just going to summarize what I saw that was amusing. There were like 5 or 6 people saying, "I'll do the same job for $100,000 a year. I can do that." And then there was another person who said that they would cook for somebody. And they listed like 20 different Mexican cuisines that they could make and said, "I'll cook food for you for $100,000. And somebody was so interested in that person that said that they would cook all these foods for people that somebody else replied and said, "Please message me, private message me. I will hire you to make all those foods." And I'm not sure how serious that exchange was, but it was cute and I thought it was funny. Would you guys pay somebody $100,000 a year to have specialty Mexican cuisine every day? I suppose if you have a lot of money, that's not even a question. If you like that stuff, you're going to have it one way or the other. $100,000 for food, though? That's a little too rich for my taste. Our stories for today have come to a close. If you enjoy this content, please click like or subscribe, or click the notification bell so you know when new videos drop. Until we meet again, have a stupendous day.